special guests today are Shefali and Anjali Nath. Both of them are Kathak dance teachers and also students of Kathak legend Chitresh Das and Gretchen Herron locally. They will be performing Nari Shakti at Women of the Year 2016 on June 3rd at Burlington Marriott Hotel in Burlington. We are going to talk to them about their journey to the world of Kathak, how they started, and what did they learn from the Kathak legend Pandit Chitresh Das. Shefali, welcome to our studio.
Thank you.
Anjali, welcome
Thank
to
you.
our studio.
Thank you for having us.
Sure. We are looking forward to your performance, Nari Shakti at Women of the Year. And Shefali, let us start with you. And what is Nari Shakti and what you will be portraying during your performance there?
So our Guruji, Pandit Chitresh Das, one of his big contributions to the art was empowering the self through the dance. He always pushed us to go beyond what we thought we were capable of doing in the dance and in life. And so through that, he empowered generations of women. And that's why we wanted to honor that legacy and take that forward through Nari Shakti for Women of the Year. So we're going to do two pieces. We'll begin with a Rangmanch, an invocation, and that's really bhakti, the spiritual devotion to the dance. And then the second piece is a tarana. It's very high energy, jackers, footwork. It's composed by Guruji, and it really highlights the pure technicality and rhythmic complexity of the dance.
Thank you. Anjali, without giving us the details about Tarana, if you can talk a little bit more about that, what Tarana consists of.
Tarana, as Shefali said, is a very high energy piece, and it is a composition that is made up of dance syllables. And so it's something where the four key elements of Kathak are highlighted. So you have Tayari, Layakari, Khubsurti, and Nazakat, and those are readiness in your technique, your deep understanding of rhythm and how you can play with rhythm, as well as beauty and grace and the delicacy of that beauty. So all of these are highlighted within a Tarana.
Excellent. Now, you are a student of Pandit Chitresh Das. What do you remember of him, that one of the things which really impacted you?
So many stories, but I actually met Guruji when I first started studying here. I started learning from Gretchen Hayden actually at Tufts University when I was 21, so in my junior year. And I had met Panditji during that time. And I didn't really know what to make of him. He was just this energy. And as I got to be exposed to him more and more, I just realized that there was something about him that I wanted to be connected to more. And after 6 years of studying with Gretchenji, I actually moved from here to California, where I stayed for 10 years, and I studied with Guruji directly, with Pandit Chitresh Das. And just being around him day in and day out, you're exposed to so many aspects of who he is, how he teaches, what he's trying to convey through his teachings. And it's not just dance, it's really life. And so many beautiful philosophies and values that he really lived and breathed himself, that we actually were. He was trying to, just as we're talking about women's power, trying to ensure that others realize their own strength and are aware in life. A lot of times we just go through life with blinders on and, doing what we're supposed to do. And he was certainly an outspoken person. He was a very honest person, and I think I really connected to his integrity.
Shefali, what drew you to Kathak dance?
I was very young. I was 12. I walked into Gretchenji's class at the dance complex. Didn't know anything about Kathak other than what I had seen in movies. And immediately I was drawn to just the strength, the stamina. You felt so capable and powerful to be able to do footwork, checkers, to improvise within the tradition, and then to tell stories and express yourself. So it was a very full art form, and it connected me deeply to my own roots and my Indian heritage, which was important because I moved from India and wasn't in that surrounding. So the dance studio actually provided me a way to connect with my own roots.
Anjali, some of our viewers who may not be aware, may not know what exactly Kathak dance is, if you can talk a little bit about the Kathak dance.
Sure. So Kathak is one of the 8 classical dances of India, and this is from the northern region. And several gharanas flourished over the centuries, and Lucknow and Jaipur are some of the main gharanas, and there are others, Benares, etc. But Kathak is characterized, all of the classical dances actually have their roots in storytelling. So Kathak comes from the word Katha, meaning story, and a Kathaka is a storyteller. So they all have that commonality, but Kathak is actually characterized by rapid movement of the feet as well, swift chakras, and again, as I was talking about the 4 elements of Kathak, just that contrast of grace and beauty, and it's a little light, in the body it's a little lighter than you might see in other Indian classical dance styles where some are more weighted and into the ground. So it's a really interesting contrast of groundedness at the same time being lifted.
Now, both of you have learned, of course, from Pandit Chitresh Das and also Gretchen here locally. And now you have also started to teach Kathak. So can you talk a little bit, both of you, about your teaching experience? Where do you teach and what type of students you have?
Sure. So I started teaching. I moved back to Boston after college, and I started teaching here. And I have started classes at the Academy of Creative Arts in Burlington. And I also direct their youth ensemble. So we created a platform for youth who want to really pursue the art at a high level to be able to train and perform Kathak.
What about you?
Yeah, so Chandika is actually a school, as she was saying, with 3 branches, and we have over 100 students across these branches. And we are teaching kids from very young age 5, all the way through adult. We have a lot of parents and children dancing at the same time, often in the same studio, separate classes. So I think what I really love is that I get to, again, pass on what I've learned, and through teaching I'm constantly learning, but not only to the younger generations, but to a lot of older generations, our generation, who a lot of people, they might have learned or wanted to dance when they were younger, and they feel I'm too old. And I can't tell you how many times I get people saying that. But what I love is that we speak to them, they just overcome, and they try, and they are there for themselves. So again, one thing is the dance, we're teaching dance, but again, so many other things that we can teach through the dance. And I actually co-direct the youth ensemble with Shefali, but Shefali actually helped to establish that, which is a really wonderful program for preteen and teenage youth who actually have to audition to get in. So really creating a standard in the art. So it's one, making the art accessible within the classroom and out in the community. We're out at a lot of community events. We have really wonderful community partners out there and in and around Boston, New England, etc., and beyond, because Chandam, our school that we're affiliated with, that Guruji established, Chandam School of Kathak Dance, is global. Now, many of the students who studied with him for many years, who are now solo artists, such as myself and Shefali, who are out there performing and running their own branches of schools from San Francisco to LA to Boston, Toronto, Mumbai. We are all part of being able to pass this on to next generations, but also maintain and keep promoting and evolving high art.
Now, when it comes to learning Kathak, mostly, at least what I see, and is the women. Why the male or men they're not?
We have a few male students.
Mm-hmm.
The art form originally started with men dancing, and many of the gurus were men.
Even Chitresh Das is a very good example. Absolutely, yeah.
And what's unique about the art is this concept of ardhanariswara, half male, half female. And the idea is that in each of us, there are both those energies. There's the masculine and the feminine energies. And the dance allows you to tap into those sides of you and learn how to emote those. So it's actually just as applicable to men as women. So we do have a few students that are males, but it's few.
Any age, who will be your oldest student in terms of age? age-wise? I don't give me the
I
name,
don't know,
but
we have
just,
we have children and we have moms, some who are, might be grandmothers.
really?
One of
Yes.
our company members is a grandmother.
Excellent.
So,
Now, other question for you is, of course, Pandit Chitresh Das is known to bringing Kathak here to the US and establishing all these things. When it comes to New England, I think the one name comes to my mind is Gretchen. I think she really put this Kathak institution here in the New England area. What has been your experience learning from her and the contribution she has made to Kathak in New England?
I think, both their contributions, Guruji and Gretchenji, is unmeasurable what they have done. The art form traditionally was actually only passed down to direct descendants in the family line. So you had to be a blood relative to get the tradition and the knowledge. And their stories, people waiting outside their guru's house for years, begging them to teach them, and they wouldn't take them in. And Guruji and Ustad Ali Akbar Khan Sahib really changed that when they came to the US, and they opened their doors and they said, anyone who wants to come study, you can come and take class with us. And that was a huge revolution in the art form to make the art accessible to people of all backgrounds. And he did that starting in 1970. So he did that for over 40, 50 years. He taught day in and day out. He drove across the state of California teaching. Gretchenji studied with him, and then she moved to Boston in 1990, and she did the same. And she was not of Indian heritage, but she went to all the Indian suburbs and communities and taught all the students and the kids and brought actually the Indian tradition to students and children of the diaspora.
So, Anjali, you tell us about your experience with
well, when I first started with her in a class that someone actually kind of lured me into, but of course I noticed, I said, well, she's not of Indian heritage, she's not Indian. But within seconds, it didn't matter because I was so drawn in by what she was offering, and never have I thought of that ever since. She is such a conduit for passing on this rich tradition, and I really firmly believe in what she offers, and it's really evident in the students who been taught by her. We are actually a result of her. Though we've had exposure to Guruji, that it's really because of her that we are here.
How is the Kathak is growing in popularity in this area, and how do you look at the future of Kathak dance in this area? Let's start with you.
Well, I think I actually just came back about 3 years ago after being in California, so it's been really amazing to see how Chandika evolved and how broad its reach has become. And so before we would teach at the dance complex in Cambridge, and it's really expanded to all of the branches that we've been talking about. And just to see the fact that we now have a little bit some more formal programs to have students who would like to study this more seriously actually can become part of youth ensemble or other training programs that we're actually working on developing even further.
So you lived in California. So how is the Kathak learning in California versus Boston?
Great question. What is so wonderful is that we are all part of the same gharana, same lineage of Pandit Chitresh Das. And so even Gretchenji, as we call her lovingly, Gretchen Hayden, who studied with him, as you were saying, for 22 years directly before coming here to start her own. It's of course different, right? Nobody is like Guruji, but again, the values are so universal, and those who are passing on the art are actually really carrying forward some similar principles. So Guruji has actually encapsulated his philosophies in what he's coined the 9 principles of Chandam. And so in that, he has laid out what does it really mean to study Kathak, and what are the elements of that, and what should one think about. And the first principle is attitude and etiquette, sadvyavar or tehzeeb. So that is the first principle that we teach, from how you walk into the room, the dance room, again creating that awareness. And so that is what the students are taught from day one, regardless of age. And so it's these kinds of philosophies that permeate throughout the
So,
schools that
what
we're
are the
a
other
part of.
eight principles?
Oh, you're testing me.
Okay.
This is what Guruji would do all the time.
No, it's a very interesting concept that how you walk in. But what are just highlight few other elements of this.
Well, my Hindi is awful, so I will
Okay.
only say in English.
Okay.
But once you, depending on what, and this again is life, the attitude you choose to adopt will affect your whole life, your whole perception of life, your experience of life, etc. Next would be study and training in your art. Shefali can also help me out as well.
Okay, sure. Okay, let's come to
So
Shefali.
next is riyaz,
Mhm.
practice. And I was practicing with blood, sweat, and tears.
Mhm.
So you had to really push yourself. Then it was sarva gyan, complete knowledge.
Mhm.
You can't just learn the movements. You have to learn the history, the philosophy, the mathematics, the music in the art. Then there's upaj, improvisation.
Mhm.
You can't do the dance form is based entirely on improvisation.
Mhm.
And then it applies in life. You might be thinking you want to go down this path, something changes suddenly, and you have to come up with what to do next. Then it was, and these were laid out in a linear way, so they build on each other. So next was shiksha, prachar, or suraksha karna.
Mhm.
Once you've learned the art form, you have to educate, promote, and preserve, so that the legacy is there for generations to come.
So, what is your future plans now?
After Guruji passed, there's a great amount of responsibility in all of us to make sure that the tradition and his teaching gets carried forward. So for me, it's really training myself further, expanding my knowledge in the art, and then making it accessible as widely as possible to the next generation.
Anjali, what about you?
Essentially echoing the same sentiment. I think personally just being able to teach and pass this forward, to be able to share in whatever format we can, again, to broad audiences, and to just keep evolving as an artist and being able to bring that to those who we reach.
Now, as we come close to the interview, again, I want to bring back to Nari Shakti, which about your performance on Women of the Year Day. In your own opinion, what is Nari Shakti? What do you think?
Well, I think just being able to take this idea of inner power, inner strength, and women's power, being able to really, again, embody that concept and just show, in order to dance, people think, oh, you put on music and it's really beautiful to dance to, look at the pretty outfits as well. Oh, look at all the spins. But what they may not realize, and it's not only for Kathak, but one thing that we've been trained in is this concept of Kathak yoga, which Guruji used for his own training. Because when he came from Calcutta with, his $8 in his pocket and his ghungru, and he didn't have musicians who are typically supposed to accompany Kathak dancers. So, of course, being part of his parents' school, Nritya Bharati, he was exposed to a rich array of artists and music and culture and dance. And so he actually knew how to play tabla. So he took his tabla, put them on the table, and he played for himself. And so he began training himself in this way, where he was playing his own tabla while he was dancing, and realized just what a training technique that was. And so it was really an important technique for developing his own concentration and focus and stamina and understanding of laya and tal and strength building. And so he has really passed that on to us, because now, again, from day one, students of any age will learn this idea of Kathak yoga, and it's a way, again, another vehicle to reinforce that idea of building that inner strength, and as Shefali said, pushing beyond our personal limitations. And so when we're dancing, a lot of this is happening. And so I think it's just wonderful to be able to, even if we are dancing to recorded music or any music, it's just really important that we be able to take those things that we have learned over the years. And it's not an easy process. Being a dancer is not just, again, being an easy task. It's something where you're constantly learning, constantly growing.
Shefali, one question for you is, what about, Anjali mentioned Kathak yoga. So can you talk a little bit about Kathak yoga, what Kathak yoga is?
Absolutely. Guruji innovated within the tradition of Kathak to create Kathak yoga. He was inspired by the yogis and sadhus that were meditating in the Himalayas. And he said, it's cold, it's snowing, and they're wearing just a loincloth, looking at the sun, meditating for hours. He was inspired the kind of mental energy and physical energy it took to do that. So he created Kathak yoga. And in that, it's a yoga of the mind, body, and spirit, a union of the three. So the dancer is simultaneously playing an instrument, and the instrument produces the underlying rhythmic cycle. In Kathak, there's Tao, the rhythmic cycle. And then they sing the melody corresponding to that rhythmic cycle, and then they dance footwork patterns on top of that. So to maintain those 3 or 4 opposing rhythms takes mental concentration and stamina. And it's physically challenging because you're wearing kumru, which weigh 2 to 5 pounds, on your feet. You're dancing and you're singing on top of it. So the analogy would be if you were running on the treadmill with weights on and singing on top of it.
Another question for you is that now you come on this stage with all these things, your mind, body, and everything, and guru, and you look at the audience.
Yes.
So how do you feel at that time? Like, how does the audience play into your mental framework?
It's very important, a Kathak performance, there are 3 parts. There's the dancer, the musician, and the audience. And they all have to be in tune with each other, and there has to be a oneness for the performance to actually come to life.
So what about sometimes, Anjali, if you don't connect with the audience? There is a, you feel that you are dancing, but somehow you are not. Does it happen, or?
I'm sure it happens. It does happen, but I think you're there to offer yourself, essentially. And you're not necessarily needing to feed off of the audience. But when you do have that synergy between all 3, then it is quite a beautiful thing. But regardless of what happens, the show goes on, and we were taught, Guruji used to say, even if there's one person who came to see you in that audience, you dance for that person. And that's what I think speaks a lot.
Now, this is really the last question, but I have to ask you this. For most of us, the exposure to Kathak dance has been through Bollywood movies. I think some of the movies have done an absolutely fantastic job, Kathak. Do you have any favorite Kathak dance or song from the Bollywood?
I actually, not so much, but I used to watch things like Mughal-e-Azam and Pakiza and Umrao Jan, and so of course the songs and the dances are just beautiful. And you see those, and when I was in the classroom and learning, I realized that what I was learning was a little different than what I was seeing. And again, it was sort of me not knowing when I had seen those. I was looking at the costume and looking at the movement and the fluidity, but when you're in that classroom, and especially the way we've been trained by Panditji, that we realize that there's so much that goes into the dance and so much that's part of it, which, sometimes when we do performances, we only get to share this much, right?
Sure.
So we don't get to share the breadth and the depth of the art. But when you're in that classroom, I actually always thought that my preference, when people want to see what Kathak is, I want them to come into the classroom, because that's where you see what Kathak really is. And when you're in performance, you're limited by time and this and that, and so, and you have to deal with all kinds of things, lights, you deal with it all. But when you're in that classroom, that's where the pure energy and strength and power of Kathak really is that we get to all experience.
Shefali, what about your take on Bollywood and Kathak?
There are elements of Kathak that are really highlighted in Bollywood. There's the Khubsurati and Nazakat. But unfortunately now there's a mixing of Kathak with Bollywood, with other folk dances, and the pure tradition, which is a full evening of solo, one dancer alone on stage with live music, and there's no lighting, no costume changes, you have to dance by yourself and improvise. That tradition is getting lost because everyone wants to see a Bollywood performance. So it's beautiful in its own right, but we shouldn't lose the tradition as a result of it.
Excellent. Well, thank you very much, and
Thank
looking
you.
forward to seeing both of you
Thank you very much.
at on June 3rd for the Women of the Year.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.